I really don't know her, but her name is Elizabeth, and I'm excited to hear her, so thank you.
Hi, my name's Elizabeth, and I'm an alcoholic. I'm speaking tonight because my sponsor's really nervous about speaking, so I have to break the ice for her. I started drinking when I was 13 years old, and it was really fun at first, and I met a bunch of really cool people, and when that started to get boring when I was 16, I started using different kinds of drugs, and the more I used, the more the cool people started to go away and the worse I started to feel. When I was 21, I told my father that I needed some help and that I, needed to go to a detox. And that was great because he took me to a detox and I was there for 3 days and I was cured. So I started to go to outpatient classes through my detox, and not that it's his fault, but he would pick me up every day with a 6-pack of beer and congratulations, you're no longer a drug addict. So then I started drinking again. I got by the skin of my teeth for a very long time. I moved to Florida to try and get away from the drugs, and unfortunately the drugs followed me. When I was 23, I got arrested for my first DUI. A month later, I got arrested for my second DUI by the same police officer. I really thought he was picking on me. I don't know why he would just leave me alone. So I got on probation and I got by with that, started drinking again, started drugging again, and everything was great, but really not great at all. It was horrible. When I was 26 years old, I got arrested for a drug and sale possession charge, and I went to jail. I got released on my own recognizance, got arrested again 2 weeks later, and stayed in there for a little bit longer. This really scared me, but of course my daddy got me out of it, and I went on probation again, and continued to drink and drug. 8 months ago, I was arrested for violating my probation, and I went to jail, and I was okay with that because I figured I would get out right away. But, it actually felt really good to be in jail because I felt free. I felt freer when I was in jail than I felt like when I was out of jail at this time in my life. When I actually found out that I wasn't going anywhere for a very long time, I felt even better. And then I started to feel all these emotions that I really couldn't handle, and like, what is even going on with me? I'm like freaking out all the time. They were calling me Chicken Little because this guy's always falling, like constantly. So I had to figure something out, and the Bible, I just couldn't deal with the Bible because every time I opened it, it just didn't make any sense, so I had to shut it. Then finally I decided, I can't turn, there's nowhere else to turn. There's got to be something in here that's going to make some sense. So I started reading my Bible, and it started to make sense. I started to learn about love, and I couldn't even believe how amazing love was. There has to be more, and I just kept reading and reading. 4.5 months later, I got out of jail. And I went to a program, and I started to go to AA meetings, and it was really nice, and I enjoyed them, and there was lots of very nice people. Then I went to a women's group and met my sponsor, and she's a very wonderful lady. And you know, now it's like my life is just wonderful. I don't want to die anymore. The sky isn't falling all the time, just like once or twice a week. And, you know, I know people say this all the time, but really, like, my worst days now are, you know, just not even bad days compared to how they used to be. And I'm just so happy to be sober. I'll be sober for 9 months on the 21st of next month. I can't even believe it when I say it. That's all I really wanted to share tonight, but thank you for letting me share.
Thank you again, Elizabeth. You did great. Don't you love when our sponsors volunteer us that we have to do things that we don't want to do? I will tell you, it has saved my butt many a times, and that's why I'm still standing here. So it's all only for our better good, and it was great. Good message. At this time, Sean, I've asked my buddy Sean to come read the traditions for us.
Thank you. I'm Sean, and I'm an alcoholic. The 12 traditions. 1, our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends on AA unity. 2, for our group purpose there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God, as he may express himself. In our group conscience, our leaders are but trusted servants, they do not govern. 3, the only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking. 4, each group should be autonomous except in matters affecting other groups or AA as a whole. 5, each group has but one primary purpose, to carry the message to the alcoholic who still suffers. 6, an AA group ought never endorse, finance, or lend the AA name to any related facility or outside enterprise, lest problems of money, property, and prestige divert us from our primary purpose. 7, every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. 8, Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. 9, AA as such never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. 10, Alcoholics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues, hence the AA name ought never be drawn into public controversy. 11, our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need to always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and film. 12, anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities.
Thank you, Sean. And I've asked Damien to come up and please do the chips.
Hi, I'm Damien, an alcoholic. We have a chip system to note lengths of sobriety here at the Fourth Dimension. Get them open. All right. We have a silver chip for a sign of surrender if anybody wants to join this way of life. All right. Here we go. That is Janina and Jenny. All right, we have a red chip for 30 days. That's Carrie, everybody. We have a gold chip for 2 months, 60 days. That's Tricia. We have a green chip for 3 months, 90 days. All right. That's Nick, everybody. We have a blue chip for 6 months. Tommy. That's Michelle and Tom. Lots of chips tonight. All right, I have a purple chip for 9 months. That's Ivan. And then we have a red polka chip for 1 year. And we turn it over for multiple years. Sue, how many years? 8 years, and that's Guy with 23. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I would like to introduce the main speaker, whom I also don't know that well, but I'm really anxious to hear her story also, and her name is also Elizabeth. Would you please come up?
Hi, my name's Elizabeth and I'm an alcoholic. And I'm really excited. I'm a little bit nervous. But I want another round of applause for the first Elizabeth because she did a great job. For never speaking before. And I did not tell her she had to speak. I just told her if she was ever asked to do anything in AA, she needed to say yes. And about a week later, I said, will you speak? I didn't make her do it. And also, congratulations to everyone that picked up a chip tonight. Those milestones are, I know especially in the beginning, gave me something to look forward to. And I actually tried to go to NA so I could get those key tags. But I couldn't sit through the NA meetings. They read about cocaine and that was not good. So anyways, this is an AA meeting, so I'm an alcoholic. Drugs are part of my story. To the newcomers, there's a few things, in case I get off track, which I have a tendency to do, there's a few things that helped get me sober, helped keep me sober in the beginning, and they're the things that I always return to when I'm struggling today. Go to meetings, don't pick up a drink, get a big book, read your big book, get a sponsor, use your sponsor, get a home group, get a job at the home group. All of those things are very, very important in the beginning as well as, as you get some time. My home group is at the end of the rainbow in Palm Harbor, and it's the best home group. It's a women's meeting, and we do provide child care. So it's Saturday mornings. And I got sober actually in Oregon back in '94. And gosh, I'm shaking. So I hope you guys can hear me. Start at the beginning. I'm not sure exactly when I started drinking, but I do remember the first time that I tried to control my drinking. I was 8, 10, something like that, and there was a really pretty bottle in a really pretty bag in a really pretty box, and so I tried it, and it tasted like sugar. It was amaretto, and so I used to hit that every once in a while, and I noticed one day that it was getting kind of empty, and somebody might notice, so I decided I couldn't do that anymore because somebody might notice. Little did I know how much my mother drank, She would not have noticed. But, but I remember as a little child walking past that bottle and thinking I wanted it, but I couldn't have it. And, you know, so a few years went by and I started, you know, drinking at the lock-ins at church, and started smoking pot when I was about 15. Actually, it was my 15th birthday. And I really didn't, it was about another year after that that I started drinking heavy. But I started smoking pot a lot, and that continued throughout. I was a daily pot smoker. And started drinking at a party, and I had, in Bill's story, he talks about the ominous warning which he failed to heed. And there was an open keg, and it was the first time that I had really had unlimited access to alcohol. And so I just continued to drink it because it was there. And I thought, this is wonderful. As I'm out in the backyard of some party, laying in my vomit, and my friend says, I'll go get you some water. And I said, no, get me more beer. And she looked at me and she said, you're insane, you know, and she was right. I didn't know that at the time. I just thought, you know, this is great. You know, I can't lift my head off the ground, and this is wonderful. And I don't know if any of you guys have ever experienced wanting more when you had too much already, but that's what it did for me. And so I, you know, we managed to get home. I didn't drive that night, but I did teach somebody how to drive. So she was, you know, too young to drive. But anyway, we got home, and I'm sure she was pretty drunk herself. But we got home, and living in Florida, I was born and raised here. And for those of you who are up north and experience spring break, it's like a week. Spring break down here is like 2 months. You know, and so you can go to the beach, and on, you know, Friday, a whole bunch of people come in town, and they have money and drugs and alcohol, and you go down there and you party with them for like a week, and then, you know, they leave, and a whole new group comes in, you know. So it's great. And, you know, but, so that was, you know, the next couple of years. I tried going to school and would not do so well, and didn't always show up to class. Apparently that's important if you want to go to college. Well, it really wasn't for me, because I just continued to go to college, because my parents, my family was very loving and supportive, and we were always looking for a solution for Elizabeth. You know, maybe it's the boyfriend, maybe it's the classes, maybe it's, you know, there were always these crazy scenarios that I was in, a lot of drama. So that party was when I was 16. Backtrack a little bit. I ended up in my first psych ward when I was 17 for attempted suicide. And by that time, I was drinking almost daily and smoking pot every day. And it was starting to take its toll very quickly. I had a friend describe one time that she called herself a slow trigger alcoholic, that she didn't start drinking until she was in her 20s or 30s, and it was another 20 years before she was really a full-fledged alcoholic. And since I heard her talk about that, I consider myself a quick trigger alcoholic. You know, I started drinking heavy when I was 16, and by the time I was 17, I was suicidally depressed. You know, I was done. And but I went to that psych ward, and what we discovered was that my mother was an alcoholic, and let me tell you, the family was not real happy about me pointing out that elephant and bringing it to light. So everybody was really mad at me, and we decided that the problem was that I had not gone off to college, and that's really what I needed, was to not live in the house anymore. So we sent me to Tallahassee. And man, if Clearwater Beach isn't enough, Tallahassee. Really learned what drugs and sex and drinking is all about. And you know, and there I did really well in school, because I found that you could pay people to write your papers. So, and they didn't care if I showed up at class. So, anyway, this went on going to school, dropping out of school situations, you know, for, you know, those of you that have been around female alcoholics, you know, male alcoholics, whatever, we wake up in all sorts of situations, all sorts of strange places with all sorts of strange people that we don't want to be in, you know, and there was a lot of fear, there was a lot of anxiety, and there was a lot of hurt in those times. You know, but I thought, part of me thought it was great. Part of me tried to, you know, quit drinking, and you know, I know there were times when I thought I quit drinking for a really long time, but I was doing drugs the whole time. And then, in 93, and you know, it was always boyfriends, this, that, and the other. I ended up in a situation that was pretty bad. It was a really violent rape, and it was, I mean, if there was anything left, I'd already kind of tried AA, and I really spiraled downward, you know, and I ended up in another psych ward. I ended up in a, they put me in, you know, I smashed my TV. I was at this point living down in Boca Raton. After that, they moved me again, and I ended up down in Boca Raton going to FAU, and ended up in a, they put me in a detox center, and they put me in a psych ward, and they put me in a treatment center, put me in another treatment center, and I got so much out of those. I got to deal with my emotion. I got to deal with stuff that was going on. And when I got to the treatment center, they gave me a big book. And when I left the second treatment center to go to a halfway house, they told me, you know, that they got me sober and they gave me a lot of tools. And they said, if you want to stay sober, go to Alcoholics Anonymous. And they took me to meetings, and we weren't allowed to talk to men. We weren't allowed to eat sugar. There was all this crazy stuff, but they said, if you want to stay sober, go to Alcoholics Anonymous. And somehow or another, I heard that, you know. And I went to a halfway house, and it was the first time. And during that period, it was the first time I was 23, and it was the first time since I was 16 years old, except for when they had me on meds in the other psych ward, that I had been sober more than about 2 days and off of anything. And so I immediately started drinking, and that was like, I was there, I think it was a total of like 4 months. And I started drinking in the sober house. And didn't last there for very long. I was bringing parties back and, you know, going to the nightclubs and, you know, picking people up, bringing them home. And you know, and then, you know, they would figure out that I was like, they were, you know, getting drunk, and they would figure out that it was a sober house, and they weren't real happy. But anyway, so I ended up going, I had applied for a job in Montana, and and they called me and said, you know, we got your application, and I had applied for it like 6 months ago. And they said, we got your application, and do you want to come to Montana? I said, sure. Things are great here. And at this point, I had decided I knew all about alcoholism, because now I had been to treatment. I had dealt with all this, you know, emotional issues, so I thought. And, you know, everything was great. I was an alcoholic, so I was just going to drink like an alcoholic. I was just going to be an alcoholic, you know. And, I mean, heck, my mom was doing it, and she was, you know, doing pretty good. So, you know, of course, you know, she had my dad. So anyways, I decided I'm going to Montana, and that went over like a brick with my family, but I went anyway. And so I got to Montana, and within a matter of 2 weeks, I had talked to people there into hiring me full-time and taking me back to Arizona at the end of the summer, because they were in Montana for the summer at this national park. And so, because you know, I'm pretty good at manipulating and getting what I need. And but then somewhere along the third week, I woke up in Yellowstone, which is not in Montana. So I woke up in Yellowstone with some guy, and which I did often. I did, you know, I don't know, I was a blackout drinker. I would wake up in Jacksonville Beach. I would wake up in Georgia. I came fully out of a blackout on an airplane one time, wide awake in the middle of a conversation with somebody. And I was actually on my way to Oregon, trying to get to a Grateful Dead show is what we put together later. And, you know, it's actually the one time I remember going to a bar and saying I was only going to have one. Because my roommate said, aren't you going to AA? Aren't you supposed to not be drinking? And I said, you know, we're just going out for a beer. I'm only going to have one. And the next day I was on an airplane. So, fortunately I can remember the beginning of that night, because I know without a doubt that I can't just have one. I have no idea what time that clock says, so somebody give me a 5 minutes when I'm getting close. So anyways, I wake up in Yellowstone. I don't know how long I was there, or the whole process was, but I didn't have any money, and I didn't have any, and I was with these people I didn't know, some guys, you know, staying in people's trailers and camping, and, you know, getting people, you know, and getting, as a female, getting people to give you food and drugs and alcohol, use your body to do that, and it wasn't very pretty. And, you know, and there was nowhere left for me to go. And so I had met this woman, and I don't remember much about this time period, but I remember standing in this woman's house and taking a shower at her house and asking her, you know, for some food. And she asked me how long I had been homeless. And I just looked at her. I was like, what are you talking about? I'm not homeless, you know? And she said, well, where do you live? I said, well, you know, I'm staying in a tent down at the campsite right now, but I'm just traveling, you know? And she said, well, where's your mail go? I said, well, I don't, you know, to my parents' house, if anybody, you know, sends me anything. And she said, well, when was the last time you lived at your parents' house? I had to think about it, and I was like, well, maybe about 5 years ago that I actually lived there and wasn't just passing through. And, you know, and they talk about that moment of clarity, and it hit me, you know, that I didn't have anywhere to go, you know, and, you know, and I meet people that are, you know, truly homeless, and I don't, you know, but it was just that was enough for me to, I went to these people, this guy that I was with, and said, you know, I need to go to Oregon and go to Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, Yellowstone is also not in Oregon. It's not even close to Oregon. It'd be like saying, you know, being in Florida and saying, I need to go to Tennessee. But I did, and I drove to Oregon, and I don't know what happened and what transpired during that time period, really, except that I didn't have any money, and I had enough gas, and I got there. And I ended up at a hotel, and I didn't have enough money, and it was like that scene out of Pretty Woman where she pulls out all the cash, and I ended up at a hotel at the front desk, and I said, I need a room. And I sat in the parking lot for a long time trying to decide if I was going to go to the bar and have a beer, so I had the courage to call Alcoholics Anonymous, and I decided that the bartender might think poorly of me. And, like it matters at this point, you know. And so anyways, I gave him the money, and I got a hotel room, and she helped me to dial the operator, and the operator helped me to dial Alcoholics Anonymous, and I got on the phone, and I told this gentleman who ended up being the best man at my wedding. I didn't know where I was, and he told me to read, you know, the matchbooks or whatever, and I told him I was at a Days Inn. He said, well, which one? I have no idea. He said, well, look out the window. I said, it's his XXX adult video, and he said, I know exactly where you are. And he gave me directions to the meeting, and I got in my car and I drove to the meeting, and I sat down in the meeting, and I don't know if they asked for announcements or newcomers or what they did, but I raised my hand and I said, you know, that I was going to die, and I didn't know if I would make it through that day, but I know I wasn't going to make it very long, and that I knew that they were responsible if I reached out for help, and it would be their fault if they let me leave the meeting, and my death would be on their hands. Because I had learned a little bit, you know, that we are responsible thing that they said. So, they did. They took care of me. They didn't let me drive because I was pretty messed up. And they took me in and they tried to feed me. I wasn't eating at that point. I go through bouts of that, or I used to go through bouts of not eating. And but they took me home. They gave me a place to live. I lived with this family for 8 months, and got a sponsor. I did my steps in my first couple of weeks of sobriety, and went to meetings all the time. I couldn't do the God thing. I argued with people. If they started talking about God, I said a few choice words and walked out of the meeting, and I got sober in this little club, and they would say, you know, we'll see you at 5:30, Elizabeth. You know, come back at noon. I went to about 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 meetings a day for the first year at least. I couldn't really hold down a job. I learned things like it was important to brush my teeth and even floss, take a shower every day. You know, I got through the first couple of weeks, the detoxing. I weighed about 50 pounds less than I do now, and my teeth were loose. And I learned that there was this thing called reverse tolerance, and that probably my liver was starting to shut down because I couldn't handle any alcohol at all. I would have a couple of drinks and be pretty trashed at the end. But so I got a sponsor. I got sober. I got a sponsor. I started working the steps. My first sponsor was named Crazy Susie because people didn't want to sponsor me. And Crazy Susie said that she was willing to do that. And, you know, she really was crazy. About 2 years later, she committed suicide. But she was there to save me, you know, and I think several other people. And, I was told by her, listen to the fool. You know, when there's somebody in the meeting and they're ranting and raving and they're not making sense, pay attention, because oftentimes the wisdom comes out of their mouths. Because God uses all of us, you know, and you know, and I did the best I could with the God thing, and I didn't do everything right. You know, I did all of the things I was supposed to do and a lot of the things I wasn't supposed to do. I immediately got a girlfriend, and then I got a boyfriend, and I thought that that was fine. It says in the Big Book, I was told to reconcile everything with the Big Book and not to believe everything that people said in Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. And so it says in there that you can't be the arbitrator of my sex life and that I can have more pepper in my diet. So, you know, none of your business if I want to do this, right? And, you know, so as long as I was not drinking, and they told me, don't drink and come to meetings. Well, I'm doing that. So, you know, and then slowly because that's the way I like to do things. So, you know, I need a lot of pain for motivation, which I'm sure none of you have that issue. But you know, I learned that when you follow the steps in everything and you're honest, for me, when I was honest, things were easier. They weren't as painful. And when I looked at things thoroughly, things got better. And you know, one of those relationships turned into a marriage, and a lot of that marriage was really, really good. People talk about, you know, relationships in Alcoholics Anonymous, and, you know, I figure we made it 10 years, which is pretty much the going rate in or out of Alcoholics Anonymous, and we're both sober today, you know, and I've got 3 absolutely amazing children who do a really good job of making me crazy. And I think that's what they're supposed to do. I'm supposed to make them miserable, and they're supposed to, you know, give me gray hair. And I figure, you know, they're miserable and I have a hairdresser. So we're good. And, you know, it's all fair. And, you know, but they're really good kids. And you know, and I get to be there for them today, and I get to be sober. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind that if I had had children before I got sober, that they would be dead or in the system or being raised by somebody else, because of the way that I drank and because of how incredibly selfish I was. And, you know, and I still struggle with that selfishness. I want it to be all about me, and but I know that it's not. You know, I know when those thoughts come that that it's not. And I have a sponsor that I talk to almost every day, and she helps remind me that it's not about me. You know, it's about carrying the message of Alcoholics Anonymous and carrying the message about positive living and what a higher power can do for us in our lives. You know, and I have a relationship with a higher power today that sometimes I choose to call God just because so many other people relate to that term. And it works. You know, all of those things work. I have a job today where they not only, they have an expectation that I'm going to come in, but only because I've done it for 6 years in a row. You know, what's up with that? You know? Because I used to leave jobs. I would quit on Tuesday because there was a party on Friday, and I knew I was going to start getting drunk on Thursday, so why bother going in on Wednesday? You know? I mean, that was just my thought process, you know? And today I get up in the morning, and I'm there to, you know, wake my kids up, and I go, you know, and I get some time to read in the morning, and I get some time to have a cup of coffee, and I go to work, and I work while I'm at work, and it's good stuff, you know. I don't know really what else there is to say except this program is amazing. And for those of you that are new, give it a chance. You know, I was told some things in the beginning that made absolutely no sense to me, but I did them. And one of them was, you know, if your ass falls off, put it in a paper bag and take it to a meeting. Now, I still don't understand that term, but it worked for me in the beginning. Just do whatever the people, for the most part, whatever the people in here are telling you to do. Go to a meeting, get a big book, read the big book, get a sponsor, get a home group, and keep coming back, and just don't drink one day at a time. And I promise you, it will get better. If it still sucked like it did 17 years ago or even 15 and 16 years ago, I would not be here. I can guarantee you that. I wouldn't be here. I couldn't do it anymore. You know, and the problems that I have today are, you know, as Elizabeth shared, absolutely nothing, you know, compared to, and life happens, you know. My family wants me in their lives. They want me around for holidays. My father had a stroke a couple of years ago. They want me there in the hospital. They want me, you know, they asked me to move back in with them to help, you know, so we could all help each other. And what a miracle. What a miracle, because so many years I was the drama and I was the center of the, you know, the problems. And it's so nice to be part of the solution today. So thank you all very much for inviting me to speak, and have a good night.